Hello and welcome to this special show on Rajya Sabha Television. My name is Vishal Dahiya and here we take a stock of India's battle against COVID-19 and several aspects. Now, one of the very important aspects in this fight against COVID-19 pandemic is air pollution. The reason why we are going to talk about the link between air pollution and COVID-19 is because we are soon heading into winter months and these months, specifically in metro cities, are considered synonymous with severe air pollution. So we'll try and understand whether or not there is any evidence so far of this link between air pollution and COVID-19. How does it affect the patients or the infection, and how can we navigate through these particular months? So we'll try and get all the aspects. Let me first introduce the guest to you, beginning with Ms. Anumita Roy. She is Executive Director, Research and Advocacy with the CSE, that is Center for Science and Environment. We also have with us Dr. Karan Madan. He is Associate Professor in the Department of Pulmonary Medicine at All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And we also have with us Dr. Rajiv Dasgupta. He is Chairperson of the Center for Social Medicine and Community Health at Jawaharlal Nehru University. Welcome all of you to Rajya Sabha Television. Let me begin with you, Dr. Karan, and let's start by looking at the evidence, if there is any direct evidence linking air pollution to COVID-19, or we are extrapolating it from our previous experiences, such as SARS epidemic in 2003.
See, I think one thing is very clear, because we have seen, that the COVID situation was kind of very worse in the Western nations, and, a weather element cannot be ignored. Now, during the winter month season and, the October months and following that, once the air pollution situation worsens, the acute respiratory infections increase in, number. And more number of patients come with respiratory illness. These include viral illnesses also, asthma worsens. So I think, and there's a possibility of increased virus survival in winter months also. So I think with the weather dropping, the air pollution situation worsening, there is a possibility that the COVID-19 situation may worsen in the country. And we are going through the first winter phase following the pandemic. So I think how this situation will evolve is a matter of time. But I think we have to be on our toes, we have to be on a watch, and there is a possibility that the numbers may increase.
Okay, so there's a possibility, although there is little evidence. But since this is from the previous experience we're talking about, Dr. Rajiv, your views on this link between increasing air pollution and the pandemic which we are facing right now, the way this particular virus or the infection graph may go up and down?
Well, there is no denying that air pollution in itself has been a public health emergency of sorts for quite some years now. There are protocols, there are targets, and so on. So it has its own trajectory and its own imperatives. The added question now is whether it will have a bearing on the COVID situation. What we need to consider is where is the evidence coming from. One set of evidence being talked about is the experience of mortality in the European countries during the winter months when it started in February, March. However, the mortality in those countries is an outcome of their age structure, their comorbidities, a certain uniqueness in their health systems and so on. Which are not necessarily the same as ours, though ours may have, and indeed do have, different sorts of challenges, but they cannot be directly extrapolated. The other issue is of experiences from SARS and so on. Again, while both are coronavirus epidemics, but they do have had somewhat different trajectories. But the greater caution is what we call ecological inferences and ecological fallacies, which is drawing evidence from one large group and then extrapolating it to either another group, or drawing an inference from a group and extrapolating to individuals.
Okay.
These are the finer methodological aspects that one needs to weigh in while interpreting the evidence.
Okay. Okay, let me bring in Anumita here as well. Anumita, as Dr. Rajeev is pointing out, air pollution has been a cause of public health emergency for quite some years now. So your organization has been keeping a close watch on how things move as far as the sphere of air pollution is concerned. Now that we are at the cusp of winter months and also factoring in the crop stubble burning in northern India, that might also contribute a little bit. How do you perceive the air pollution scenario from here onwards? We are now moving out of the lockdown situation and into the unlock phase, resuming normal activities.
Absolutely, you're very right. And that's the question that's worrying us, all of us. So let's first understand how air pollution behaved during the lockdown phase. Now, during that period, the first 2-3 lockdown phases, we saw a dramatic decline in pollution, naturally, because everything was shut. Even though it's a humanitarian crisis, but it was also a grand unintended experiment that showed us, demonstrated to us, that when you shut everything, your industry closed, construction closed, traffic off the road, within a couple of weeks, we saw dramatic decline from about 48 to 88% decline in pollution. But what is even more dramatic is that around when we started to unlock in this fourth phase of pollution, the unlocking, there was suddenly again a big jump. In Delhi NCR, pollution levels again went up by 3 to 5 times. So we are in that phase now. We are unlocking that dream of blue sky, clear blue that we saw. That's also disappearing now. We are at the throes of the winter, and pollution is really going to hit us back again. So from that perspective now, what we should keep in mind, and my co-panelists have already highlighted this, that what the health evidence is telling us about the health impact of air pollution is that one, that when we are exposed to air pollution for a very long period of time, then during the time of pandemic, it's very tough for the weak lungs to fight the virus. And that's the reason why the evidences are showing that there's a possibility that the mortality and illness and morbidity may increase. But now they're also trying to understand the linkage between whether the COVID can also be airborne, or the virus can be airborne or not. Maybe not for a longer period of time, but at least for a shorter period of time and within a close radius of the infected person. So there are a lot of these new uncertainties that have come in. There are additional research that are investigating now that whether the particles in the air can carry the virus. So we do not know a lot about this. It's all very investigative right now, but we have to err on the side of the caution.
Okay.
And therefore, when we are moving forward and winter is going to be bad, we have to also keep in mind that the colder month, in fact, you may recall that during summer, there was so much talk about that whether the virus is going to survive for a longer period of time in cold air-conditioned spaces. Now, so therefore, during winter, when the climate is going to get colder, we do not know how that is going to impact. So we are therefore entering winter with a lot of uncertainties and a lot of concern today.
Okay.
So therefore, what we certainly require is an immediate strategy of how do we build our action strategy. Because as you rightly said, that during winter now, overall the farm fires are already back. They are starting now. And the October and November are going to be particularly bad. Also understand, that's the question that we are asking today, can we use this crisis as an opportunity to build our strategies for the new normal? Can we think about a green recovery? Because there are actually a lot of interesting opportunities emerging in the current situation, even though things are adverse, even though we know there's an economic slowdown, but there are policy opportunities, and the whole economic recovery agenda that we are talking about today can we design it for a green recovery?
Okay.
And I think there is the opportunity, and we can discuss that now.
That's a very, very, very significant point, and obviously I'll come back to you, Anumita, on that strategy for green recovery. But let me bring in Dr. Rajeev here as well. Dr. Rajeev, very significant direction given by Anumita to the discussion and the point raised about the green recovery and making most of this opportunity. Turning crisis into opportunity, because all of us remember those days of blue sky during the lockdown period. Obviously, we can't stay locked down forever, and that is why unlock process has begun. But accordingly, we will have to make changes as well. Dr. Rajeev?
Well, I'm no expert on green recovery. However, one will need to balance the various options. For example, if, let's say, green recovery demands that most people stay at home, or rather work from home to the extent possible, and let's remember that in a heterogeneous society with quite an enormous set of disparities, this is actually limited in scope. Even limiting transport will come with its pitfalls. What are the other spin-off adverse effects that could happen? For example, mental health outcomes. So how is it that we are going to balance, if, or rather given that a so-called new normal is emerging?
Okay.
How vast are we going to imagine the range of adverse effects, and where does environmental concerns or imperatives fit within that wide spectrum of challenges?
Okay, but that behavioral change, which we look at, and since the beginning of this battle against COVID pandemic, we've been talking about, Dr. Rajeev, in terms of, bringing change for respiratory hygiene, for wearing masks as well. Shouldn't the same be applied to this particular aspect as well, ensuring that we steer clear of going back into the red zone as far as air pollution is concerned?
Let me give you a slightly different viewpoint, which may even sound slightly against the grain. The point is that it's a rapidly evolving pandemic. As epidemiologists, we do recognize that practical epidemiology is actually quite messy. It is not an exact science as we would like to imagine it to be. Yet the imperative of epidemiology or epidemiologic thinking is, and as we have seen, to be able to produce very actionable things. And therefore, the adage in epidemiology is that a good descriptive epidemiology means that you can even be right for the wrong reasons. The point, therefore, to connect to what you are saying is that no matter what the larger complexities are, the specific interventions or preventive interventions are indeed relatively simple, such as respiratory etiquette, such as hand washing, such as mask use, distancing, and so on. And therefore, whether the environmental fallouts are one or the other, the extent to which economic recovery is desired, permissible, or actually happens, individuals or groups or communities ought to be able to protect themselves with relatively simpler interventions and not necessarily very, very large scale paradigmatic shifts, perhaps.
Okay. Okay. Anumita, your views on that? Simpler interventions are required, but here, if we keep the intervention part aside and bring the behavioral change part a little more, when we talk about strategy or policy changes, which you're talking about, those things which environmentalists have been, or the advocates for reducing air pollution have been talking about, more focus on perhaps cycling, walking, or a focus on public transport. These policy changes.
Absolutely. And that's what I want to focus on, because, it's very interesting that during the pandemic, when we did survey in Delhi NCR and among the middle and the high income groups, it was quite amazing that, yes, we found that in the short run, there was going to be an increased interest in personal cars and two-wheelers. But at the same time, what was very interesting, they all showed increased interest in walking and cycling because it's a contact-free travel mode. And therefore, it's a safe travel mode. You don't get infected when you're walking and cycling. Now, what we have found globally, other governments, they have taken that as an opportunity. And you will find across European cities, whether London, Berlin, Paris, they have overnight created these safe walking and cycling spaces for people. Now, the reason for that is they have leveraged that opportunity in the behavioral interest of the people, and they have actually estimated, for instance, in London, they found that for 5-kilometer radius journey, about 45% people use cars. Now, they said, if we can provide walking and cycling infrastructure, then that means that 45% people who are using car for 5-kilometer distance, they can easily shift to walking and cycling and also reduce pressure on public transport because that is already under stress because public transport has to meet social distancing norms, right? Okay. So as a result, now we have, so in India as well, now in our cities, it's important to build on that behavioral issue. Second one, this whole work from home, which we have collectively practiced across the country. If we can take that and leverage that to institutionalize that system, to reduce travel requirement, then that is going to give us a big spin-off. Now, it does not, so there are equity issues, certainly, because some people, especially poorer people, will have to go out to work. But then all of us don't have to crowd on the road. So if we can free up the road space, if we can free up the public transport for those who require it, then you are also reducing the chances of infection. So there is a chance for us to address these issues, and we can build policies on these new opportunities that are emerging, especially in the digital platform that has now become so extensive. As you know, many IT offices, many offices, now they have come up with 2 to 5 year plan of work from home. So this is the kind of institutionalization we require. Every winter in Delhi, the Delhi government tries to do odd and even. Okay. But we don't have to do odd and even anymore. Now you just have to institutionalize and make a systematic approach towards work from home system, and you can reduce vehicle numbers on the road. So let's look at the opportunity to build these important strategies to move forward.
Okay, so that's about strategies and policy changes, having an institutionalized approach towards the entire problem. But let me bring Dr. Karan back here. Dr. Karan, from a pulmonologist's point of view, and specifically talking about the COVID-19 pandemic situation here, given the fact that the air pollution levels will rise from here onwards, that's what is expected if you look at the data for the previous years also, what is it that as a doctor, as a pulmonologist, you would suggest to people, to general citizens out to take care of in terms of small behavioral changes maybe, or to ensure that they don't get infected, or do take care of others as well?
Yeah, so Vishal, you see, as the theme is getting clear, as from the other panelists also, we need to work on a multi-pronged approach to prevent something which we know is going to worsen. In the sense, we know that the air quality is likely to worsen, and as a health personnel, I can tell you that we see every year that once the air quality dips, the acute respiratory illnesses and the problems actually rise to a dramatic extent. So I think once we know that, I think there should be a multi-pronged approach, first of all, to predict what are the air quality going to be like and what preemptive measures non-health agencies can take to mitigate or reduce the impact or the worsening in the air quality. From the health perspective, what I can say that we know that there's a certain subgroup of patients, especially those with heart disease, with respiratory disease like asthma, COPD, and small children. They are, and older people, they are particularly vulnerable to the effects of a worsening air quality. So we have to identify the risk groups.
it is going to be also very interesting how the schools, there's a lot of talk about schools opening at some point of time, and you had issues of school getting closed during high pollution days. So I think those are things which all have to be integrated, and there has to be balance as to how we, move towards the air pollution, the health story, and the COVID integrated into it.
Okay.
So I think what I can say is that we identify high-risk groups, prevent their exposure to air pollution. We keep a close watch on how the COVID numbers and the situations are behaving. And all the steps of the unlock and all the measures should be taken in an integrated fashion so that we don't let the control of the situation get out of hand. And as far as the preventive measures go, I think as we this is the talk every year, is that for vulnerable groups like those with heart disease, small children, elderly people, they avoid their exposure during the outdoors when the air quality is bad. And this time it is going to be even more important because, children getting exposed, they can get the infections in the home to the older people. That might worsen the situation. So
Okay.
a careful balance needs to be kept.
Okay, so an integrated approach is required there. It is. Dr. Rajeev Kanguni, comments from you in terms of the advice as a public health safety expert, for people generally in the days or weeks or months to come.
Well, as the other panelists have been pointing out, the answer actually is how we put our heads together. And that really is an effort that all governments will need to put in. It will need to get in different disciplinary experts. It will need to understand and balance the trade-offs, because it's all about making choices about trade-offs. There are environmental concerns, there are health concerns, there are physical health concerns, there are mental health concerns. Children have certain concerns, and so on and so forth. So what is the optimal mix that each city or each area or each state will go for is a function of a dialogue, of weighing in the evidence, and evidence is going to emerge as we progress. And it's got to be a dynamic decision rather than one silver bullet.
Okay. Definitely. It has to be a dynamic decision because it is a dynamic situation out there dealing with this pandemic. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajeev, Dr. Karan and Anumita Roy there as well for sharing your views and time with us and our viewers. So there it is. As far as air pollution and COVID-19 is concerned, there is limited direct evidence. But as we move into the winter months, which are known for high air pollution days, we will learn more about how the virus behaves or how it affects the COVID-19 pandemic situation. But as our panelists pointed out, an integrated approach is required here to look at possible solutions with all the stakeholders involved, and all of us will have to do our bit, not only from the health point of view, but also from environment point of view. Thank you so much for watching Rajya Sabha TV. We'll come back again with a different topic.